This was my garden 3 years ago when we moved in, and this is it today. From the same perspective, a lot has changed. It was largely lifeless, just a bit of lawn and a small tree, but I knew that with a bit of time and effort, we can make it into something perfect for us. And full disclosure here, up to now, I haven't really put in much effort or money to create a wilder garden. It's kind of just happened, but that's the beauty of it. Firstly, my name's Rob. For the past decade, I've studied, worked, and now create content about the natural environment. I create here on Leave Curious, where we cover all things rewilding and nature coming back, and you've maybe seen me over at Mossy Earth, where I'm part of the video team to create videos on all the different Mossy Earth rewilding projects. When it comes to defining rewilding, I consider it to be something that is scalable. It can be applied anywhere, whether if you have a small suburban garden like mine, a city balcony, or a large farm in the country. All of these spaces can be rewilded. Thinking about rewilding like this is important as it makes it accessible to everyone, and not just something that happens in open spaces outside of cities and towns. In the UK, there's something like 23 million gardens. Imagine the impact that could be had if just half of them started to work with nature. And generally speaking, when thinking of rewilding as a tool to manage the landscape, it can either be passive or active. In my garden so far, the transformation has largely been because of passive management. We've just let things grow, but we've also been quite active and done a few things here and there to help nature along its way. It's important to remember that in your own outdoor space, you are the keystone species. You are the ecosystem engineer. You make the choices and the changes. The level to which you want to rewild is completely down to you. We've had a more sympathetic approach throughout the whole garden. Nowhere is really that well tended to, but we still make it so we can use and enjoy our space. My garden is messy, not just because we have young children who like to play and explore, but in terms of letting the plants grow. This is not a lawn that gets mowed frequently. We do not pull the brambles out of the bushes, and the borders are pretty much full of whatever wants to grow in whichever direction it chooses. This can look really quite messy to some, but for me, I love it. I can appreciate the dedication that goes into neat tidy borders, hard landscaping, and well-pruned shrubs and flowers. I enjoy being in these spaces too, but for me, it's just a little too manicured for my own garden. So generally speaking, the messier the garden, the better it'll be for wildlife, because in all of those overgrown patches, that's where life will be taking place. The first thing we did was assess what we had when we moved in, looking at both the natural features and the man-made features. With respect to natural features, literally all we had was this walnut tree and quite a bit of buddleia. And going right up the middle of the garden was a slab pathway that joined the two patio areas. Now, I thought, let's keep the natural features. Sure, buddleia might be a non-native that grows pretty quickly, but it's what we had. And in the summer, it's really great for insects. And the walnut tree was really small. It looked like it had been pruned every month of its life. It really is a fast growing tree though, because in the last few years we haven't touched it, apart from a bit of odd pruning, and it's like 5 times the size now. It's a really nice feature in the garden. And as for the paving slab path, I dug this out. Our garden was already quite narrow without having a pathway through the centre of it. Other than this, the garden was kind of a blank canvas. So without much planning, we just got to work, digging some flower beds, planting some shrubs. I think we planted too much laurel, but it does offer us cover and a bit of privacy since our fences are quite low. Something I've really enjoyed is making use of the vertical spaces. Here above the fence, I built this trellis topper. It's just a wooden structure made of old branches screwed together, and the climbers love it. Not only does this give us screening, but it looks so much better than just a boring fence. And speaking of boring fences, I also put trellis up on these fences here and planted some climbers, which are taking their time to get going. I just used some old wooden blocks to create a space between the fence and the trellis. I'm sure in a couple years this will be completely green and beautiful. And one of my favourite features in the garden is this archway. Either side we've planted wisteria and it's really flourishing now. The flowers are absolutely beautiful. It's slightly past its best, but I really love this plant. As you can see, we've made small efforts to help it along its way, but one thing that we'll definitely be doing this winter is constructing a pergola, a wider wooden structure to give it something to really climb on. Now this, believe it or not, is my pond. And before you laugh, it's got a frog in it. I've done my best to try and film them, but they're not playing ball. I think they're just chilling under the water somewhere. Every summer for the past couple of years, I've seen at least one frog in there. You're just going to have to take my word for it. This is just a container pond that really should be set in the ground a bit better. It's nicely overgrown now, there's rocks all around it and ways that little creatures can get in and out. What I'll be doing is digging out a much larger rock pool in this area here. I want to create a wide pond with a rock area for reptiles too, as I've seen quite a few slow worms in the garden. Typically when it comes to the lawn, we tend to just cut a pathway through. It kind of meanders around the tree. I really like this. You can see here from the footfall that the path has just been trodden through. And then we just tend to let the borders and the other parts of the lawn grow. For some people, I know that a long lawn gives them anxiety, but for me, this is how it should be. Sure, we do cut it from time to time, but really infrequently, especially this summer since we've just had another baby. The garden is quite a bit less tended to, but hey, that's alright because the aim is rewilding. A couple years ago, I planted this rowan tree. It was actually a birthday present from my mum. Rowan is a lovely small native tree and is doing quite well. It's always nice to have native trees in the garden. I actually want to get a couple more in. And one low effort attempt we've made to make the garden a bit more natural is sprinkling native wildflower seeds, kind of everywhere, especially in the margins. Some have taken and it gives the garden a lovely pop of colour. I would really love to create a flowering lawn. Getting more species into the grass would look beautiful. And then along with building a rock pool, a space for reptiles and constructing a pergola, I think we've got ourselves a new series here. Rewilding My Garden. It's something I thought about for a while and I want to document it here now. What are you doing in your space to welcome nature? Let's get some ideas flowing down in the comments. If you want to support Leave Curious, subscribe, like the video, and you can always become a member of the channel where you'll get access to exclusive videos. It's only $2.99 a month. I wanted to make it super affordable for everyone. To do this, just click join somewhere around this video. And if you wanted to contribute directly to rewilding projects, then you can join Mossy Earth. It's a really worthwhile thing to do and you can see nature coming back. Links to this will be in the description. As always, thanks for watching. Leave Curious.